A lot of quick thinking from the players actually saved them from a lot of grief.
I can see what's in your hand. Skullduggery, skullduggery, feeling just the pain. Killer smile, now I understand. Skullduggery, skullduggery, shattered hopes and dreams all fall down. Yeah.
Hail and welcome to Mirror Mirror Reflections session number 6. Now, when we left off, the players had left Endemont, escaping the red-haired witch. So they make their way westward towards the woods to try to find Cesana's old companions. After a couple of weeks' travel, they arrive at a big outpost city. It's described as an outpost city with a lot of bustling and hustling. There's a lot of people around. There's a lot of trades going on. There's a lot of furs being sold, skins, leather, and stuff like that. So they decide to pass the night at the town and then head out. Really didn't even stop and ask for questions. Now that I think about it, because I had originally prepared a little table, because they want to find this creature known as the Blackest Shadow, and or the Darkest Shadow, the Blackest Shadow, yeah. So I prepared a little table with gather information rolls that they could have gotten, but they just decided to head through it. Something very interesting that happened, however, was the Jack of Knives, before they head out, he decided to stop by the guard offices, the offices for the guardsmen, and he told the captain of the guard everything that was happening in the mount, of the attack of the witch and all that. So the guy actually heard him out, and he sent people. He started sending guardsmen to pack up, start some horses. He went to the pigeon towers, and apparently they start sending messages outside of that outpost. And then they headed into the Black Ice Woods. In Black Ice Woods, they saw a couple of hunters hunting far away from them, asked them a couple of questions, told them there I actually used a couple of the results for the gather information table that I have planned out. One of them told them that the Blackest Shadow was a vampire. Another one told them that the Blackest Shadow was a creature from the substrate. Another one told them that the Blackest Shadow was the shadow of an ancient lich king that used to live in rule over Oglinda and Rasfrangere. They also found tracks of Jack of Flames. Apparently was in the forest. And then during the night, while they were camping out, a couple of hunters asked if they could camp out with them. And you know, like the one that was keeping watch at the moment was Cestana, and Cestana agreed. They gave her a chunk of venison for her troubles, and they were very, very thankful. Every time one of the players would switch out during the watch, the NPCs as well would switch out during the watch. Nothing very, very important happened. I rolled randomly, and I determined that the male in the hunting party was also Jack. He was a Jack of Darts. He used poison darts to make people sleep. So he and Jack of Knives, they had a nice chat and exchange. Then they kept on heading southwest because the group of Jacks told them that not the group of giants, the group of hunters, one of them told them that usually the blackest shadow is seen southwest during that time of the year. And they kept on heading. Eventually they had to start walking on foot because the forest was too thick and their carriage couldn't go through it. So they left the carriage a little bit away. And while they were walking, they found something very, very interesting. The body of a man slumped on the ground, appearing to hold a note on his hand. Well, let me look for it. I actually, you just love chairs with rollers on it, because that day actually I before the game I prepared a prop for the game. The guy is there with a letter in one hand, just covered in blood. Now, is that blood? Is that ketchup? That's for me to know. So in the guy, the spellcasters always detect magic on anything they find. They actually found out the guy's ring was magical. Actually had a ring of spell knowledge with cure light wounds and inflict light wounds. Project got that. A couple of gloves that give you a bonus to climb checks and gives you a climb speed once per day. They got that too. Sestana got that, and he also had a silver bastard sword, which Jack decided to take. And the note read something about a giant ape. Well, you know what? It's right here. Just read it. That's why I brought it here. Alright. Beware ape. Soft spot back of neck. Better to run. Give amulet to Carolit in our net, please. That's what it read. They searched the corpse and they found a small golden amulet in the shape of a flower with a black bead in the center. They rolled their knowledges, checked that out, but it didn't really mean anything. So they kept on walking. Eventually they got to a small clearing. And in that small clearing, Jack decided to put his ear to the ground to see if he heard anything, any vibrations of any footsteps, because Sestana decided to scream out for the name of her friends to see if they could find them. And I told them that they heard like steps of forest animals like running away from them, because you know you scream in the middle of the forest creatures are not gonna go towards you, they're gonna go away from you, except the ones that tend to be extremely territorial and extremely violent. Enter the Great Canopy Ape, a monster I designed just this week at the time of recording this video. Imagine a giant gorilla, huge size, with arms that have longer than normal reach for a creature its size, and also has a tail, even though it's a gorilla, or you know, looks like a gorilla. It's a magical beast. And that thing appeared, and from the shadows they saw a creature cloaked in shadows with red eyes. He took off his cloak, put his hand on the shoulder of Sestan, and called her Lord Commander. And he was the Drow. They actually found one of the Drow. So the battle begins. I told them that we were gonna test out some new rules that I've been developing for quite a while now. Climb combat rules, because a long time ago I bought Dragon's Dogma. And that game is amazing, especially because you can climb on creatures and attack them directly. Not just slashing at their feet until they spontaneously die. So we tried out those rules. It was handled very, very well. The players seemed to have a lot of fun with it. I counted on Jack's player. I told him, hey, we're gonna play test these rules. I need your character to climb, and he said, no problem. My character has an absurd climb modifier, and I'm like, that's all I needed to know. So the fight transpires. Proja activates her wings. She's half, not half. She has a celestial bloodline because she's a sorceress. She starts flying and shooting at the creature with fireballs and cones of fire. Sestana tries to climb the creature but fails and provokes an attack of opportunity. Jack actually was very high up in one of the trees and decided to jump on the creature. I actually had some rules for that. If you do that, I roll on a random percentage to see in what part of the body do you fall under. And he fell not near the middle, on the back. So I told him, instead of having to roll 3 successful climb checks to get to the back of the neck, which is the vulnerable point, you only need to roll 1. It's like, okay. So them shooting, Jack eventually gets back there. I told him, you can do a full round attack, and he says, oh really? And I'm like, yes, you can do a full round attack while you're on top of the creature. You don't only need to do a standard attack. So he took the attacks, and after like 3 or 4 rounds, it didn't last that long, the creature was done. Well, was died. The creature just died. The reason it's called Great Canopy Ape is because even though it's so big, it's very lightweight to the point it can actually stand and run and walk on the canopies of trees, hence the name. So the Drow explained that he's a hunter. Usually he does a job in that forest once a year to hunt at least one of those apes to control the population of the apes. He cuts it up. He tells them he's gonna give them all really good compensation for helping him out. And Sestana explained the situation to him. Once she explains that it's a vampire going after them, he decides to, well, join them. So he'll be safe. So after they decide to head back, a couple of days in, heading back, at night they're attacked by a black figure floating in the air that shoots a lot of fireballs at them. They did not see the creature because they failed on their spot checks. But they obviously they did feel the attack. They took a lot of damage, and one of their horses died. So after that, they made their way back to the outpost. Jack was very confused that the creature didn't outright kill them, and just went away. Sestana told them that it's probably because the creature's just toying with them. Now back at the outpost, the Drow tells them that the next day he's gonna receive the payment, so if they wait, he can give them the payment and he'll go with them. They decide to stay the night. During the night, at the tavern, while they're discussing what to do, Jack is approached by Jack of Flames, who he knew was already in the forest. So they have an exchange, and eventually he tells her, hey, you're a powerful spellcaster, right? And she says, yes, I am. Could you please, is there any way you could like look at that thing, because we know it can spy on us. Could you spy on it? And she said, yes, I could. And he says, well, I'm willing to pay. Do you think you're gonna suffer any consequences if you do this? And she said, well, if this thing is as powerful as you say it is, the price is gonna go a bit up, so 3,000 gold pieces. That was actually, that was actually the next day that had happened, because the Drow had already paid them. Gave each one 3,500 gold pieces. 3,500 gold pieces and the bag of holding to hold it all in. So Jack pays everything to her. She goes into a room. She tells him, meet me there in 1 hour. She has the bowl of water, starts casting the spell. When she looks into the water, however, I rolled another random percentage chance and rolled really bad for her. Her eyes were completely burnt off, to the point that her eyelids were melted into her skin, and her eyes were completely rendered useless. Jack felt horrible about this, and he said, okay, so I feel bad for what just happened, but I know we need to continue getting the Drow, so here's what I propose. says Dana, you and Troya go with the other Drow to Armet, which is the town we were planning to go to look for the other Drow. And I'll go to Goad, where a lot of the powerful priests are, to see if they can cure her of her blindness. And they said they decided to do so, which splitting up the party, and it's not even splitting up the party in a dungeon, just splitting up the party into different places of the campaign setting. But whatever. Jack decides, hey, since I'm already going to go, give me the cursed sword that we've been carrying around all this time, so I can hand it in gold. And you know, they're okay with it. He heads out. I just focus on him for now. On the way there, it would take him about 3 weeks, so a week and a half in. During the night, he's taking watch. Jack of Flames is asleep. He notices a black figure approaching from the darkness, completely with his hands outstretched, and it wants to be seen. Jack takes out his weapons and says, "Stop there, who are you and what do you want?" The figure tells him, "That blade you have in your possession, it has powerful necromancy, and I am a collector of swords. I would like to buy it from you." He says, "How do you know I have it?" And he says, "Well, I've been following you. Ever since I noticed you have that sword in your possession. So, anything you want, be it 100,000 gold pieces, be it a spell cast, be it an item of your choosing, but I want that sword." And there's some exchange between them. Jack explains the situation with the vampire. The figure tells him that it could tell Jack where the vampire's coffin is, and knowing where the vampire's coffin is, he could have an advantage over the vampire. So Jack says, "Okay, but I want you to help me kill it." And the figure says, "Oh no, I don't want to fight. I can tell you where it is." And Jack is very begrudgingly. So the figure tells him, "Here's what I'll do. I'll summon a creature for you. I'll tell you where the coffin is, and I'll cure the blindness of your friend. Because once you get to go, you're not gonna have enough money to pay to heal your friend." And Jack agrees. Jack says, "You know what? That's a really good deal." So the obvious necromancer raised and created a Behir skeleton for Jack, and cured the blindness of Jack's friend, and told Jack where the coffin was. It's a town, I have it written down in the notes. And Jack gave the thing the sword, and the thing, well, just waved away and just disappeared into the blackness. So Jack, with the skeletal Behir, decides to head to Armet. On the way there, he stopped at a gnome caravan. He bought a tarp to cover the skeleton Behir. Now in Armet with Proja and Zapada. No, not Zapada. Zapada is the name of the vampire. Wow, I'm just drawing a blank. Excuse me. Sestana. It's just that thing, the elves get these weird names, man. So yeah, Sestana and Proja, excuse me, arrive at Armet. Once in Armet, they decide to first look for Carolit and give her the amulet, who they think belonged to her husband. They go, they find the house, they knock on the door, they're received by Carolit. They ask if they can go in, they sit down, she serves them tea, you know, the whole usual scenario to tell somebody that their husband died. They give her the amulet, and she asks them. She describes somebody totally different from who they found. And they said, no, that's not the person we saw. The person we saw looked like this, this, and this. And she says, that's fine. It means that my husband's not dead. It just means he left back into his life of adventuring. He did tell me this was going to happen. He did tell me that one day after we got married, he was going to leave and go back to adventuring and leave me. So I understand. The person you found was probably a messenger that was sent to give me the amulet. And Carolyn, you know, offers them a place to stay during the night. They decide to go. They go ask around town for another drow. They actually ask Carolyn, and Carolyn tells them, oh, there is another drow in town, in the brothel. She works at the brothel. They go to the brothel. They're greeted by a Taurasian, who I described as being very extremely muscular in build, with a lot of oil around his body. And what I told him next killed the player that was playing Sestana. She laughed a lot. I said, you don't know whether it's him or if it's a dead ferret between his legs. She almost died laughing. So they talk to the guy in the brothel. They find out that that another drow is in fact working there. They wait for their turn to be able to meet the drow, and effectively when they see the drow, it is Sestana's companion. They talk to her. They tell her about what's going on, and she says, I have to talk to my matron. After she talks to her matron, she comes back and tells them, okay, I can go with you. I can take a sabbatical. However, I have to finish this day's shift. And they a little bit begrudgingly, because they don't want to be away from her, but they agree. The other drow, the male drow, asks Sestana if he can spend a night in the brothel as well. And she agrees as well, but asks him to please be careful. Here's when I decided to have a little bit of fun, because she left the people that she's supposed to protect out of her sight. However, it was nighttime. Proja decided to go to sleep, and she had already been sleeping for about 2 hours. Sestana told me, I'm not gonna sleep. If it's really late, I'm gonna wake up Proja. I'm gonna go into the brothel. Excuse me. So they do. Wakes up Proja, goes to the brothel. Once they're in the brothel, they ask around for the drow. They tell them the rooms they're staying in. They even offer them peepholes to peep in through. Proja actually accepts the peephole, and she goes to look in to the female drow, and Sestana goes to knock on the door of the male drow. Once they're there, she's knocking on the door. Doesn't get any response. I asked for a perception check. She rolled really well. Excuse me. And that's the time that she felt the smell of sulfur. She kicked open the door, and she saw that the room was burning up, and the people that were in the room were just in ecstasy in the floor. Some of them were already burning, but they didn't even care. They were just in ecstasy. She takes her drow companion. She calls for everybody else to put down the flames and save the other people. Proja, on the other hand, has seen the show happening with the female drow, but eventually her companions tend to get very, very violent. So Proja realizes that it would take her too long to go around and circle the room to enter to the door. So from the people, she actually starts summoning a rock elemental inside the room, and also shooting a lightning bolt inside the room. And with that, she was able to save the female drow. So they saved them. They're very thankful, obviously. They head back to Carolyn's house, and on their way there, a woman dressed in a red and white dress with black details gets close to Sestana and gives her a piece of parchment, and then just flies away in the form of a disgusting black cockroach in the air. Sestana opens the note and it reads, "You almost lost those two. Sestana 2, Zapala 2. 4 more to go." So they met. I hope they understood that they met Zapala Dust Flame, the vampire. And then they understand what she's doing, because Proya's calling it a game. It's a sick game that she's playing. And to kill her, they first have to beat her. So they go in. The next day in the morning, Jack arrives. When Jack arrives, he left the skeletal Bahir very far away from the outskirts of the town. Jack of Flames already left him flying away. She left flying, and he asks around town. They tell him where his companions are staying. He goes in there, talks to them. They, talk about what happened to each other, and eventually the butlers go in and tells them that a royal messenger has arrived. The royal messenger walks into the living room and hands a note to Jack, and Jack recognizes it as a very important note that he just received from the emblem, from the wax sealing the note. He opens it up and it says, "For helping us defeat the red-haired witch, you have been granted a high commendation. Your presence is required immediately at Endemont. Signed, Archduke Iactus." So he asked the knight what happened, and then I told him, well, apparently there was a huge fight going on in Endemont, and they were losing because nobody could get in, nobody could get out of Endemont. But apparently, when you sent word in the outpost, the guardsmen at the outpost actually sent word to everybody around the Archduchy of Geatha. So eventually a lot of reinforcements arrived, and they were able to subdue and kill the red-haired witch, because they were very underhanded inside the town. So Jack, in his cowardice, actually did something very, very great, because if they had stayed in the town, the fight was actually going to be a lot tougher. But if Jack hadn't told the guardsmen, the town was gonna be lost forever. So rewards for really good role playing right there. Because I was actually surprised when Jack's player told me, "I'm gonna go talk to the guardsmen and tell them what's happening in Endemont." So after that, they decide, okay, first we're gonna go to Banshee Keep, which is the place where the other Drow are. And after that, since it's sort of on the way, but not really, but we still have to go sort of north, then we'll go to Endemont so I can get my, Jack says, so I can get my commendation. So that was the session. Short video this time, short recap, but the session was actually pretty long. Usually in these type of games, what takes up a lot of time is the fights. That's what I noticed, because even though it was like 4 or 5 rounds in the fight against the Great Canopy Ape, it was actually in real life like 45 minutes of fights. While people decide where they move to, what they do, and stuff like that. But it was a very fun session. The players enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot. So next session is gonna be very interesting, because a lot of things are gonna come into light next session, hopefully. And I'm very eager to see what the players do with that new information that they receive. So up until next time, guys, remember, keep it fun. Make sure everybody's enjoying themselves. And remember, rule number 1, always have fun.